In the early years of World War II, the battlefield was not always defined by massive artillery or roaring tanks. Sometimes the most dangerous threat came from a single, hidden rifleman lying silently in the grass, waiting patiently through hours of cold, mud, and tension. Snipers had already proven their deadly effectiveness in earlier conflicts, but during the global war of the 1940s, their role became far more specialized, calculated, and feared. Among the soldiers of the United States Army, sniper training focused not only on accuracy, but also on discipline, patience, and the ability to remain invisible even in the most chaotic combat environments. Most American snipers relied on highly accurate bolt-action rifles, especially the legendary M1903 Springfield rifle. With a powerful scope mounted on top and carefully tuned ammunition, this rifle could deliver precise shots at distances where ordinary infantry fire became unreliable. The goal of a sniper was simple in theory, but incredibly difficult in practice. Eliminate key targets while remaining completely undetected. Officers, machine gun crews, radio operators, and artillery observers were often the preferred targets because removing just one individual could disrupt an entire unit's effectiveness on the battlefield. But as the war intensified across Europe and the Pacific, American forces began experimenting with specialized ammunition designed for tasks beyond simply hitting a human target. Military engineers had already been developing explosive and incendiary rounds intended to damage equipment, ignite fuel, or disable lightly armored vehicles. These rounds contained small internal charges or chemical compounds that could ignite or detonate upon impact, producing far more dramatic results than standard bullets. Originally, such ammunition was never meant for traditional sniper work. Its primary purpose was anti-materiel engagement. A skilled marksman could use these rounds to destroy sensitive equipment from a safe distance: enemy trucks, ammunition crates, communication devices, or even aircraft parked on the ground. In certain cases, the rounds were also used to ignite fuel stores or disable mechanical components that would otherwise require heavy weapons to destroy. For military planners, this meant a single trained sniper could quietly sabotage valuable enemy resources without revealing the location of larger units. However, war rarely unfolds exactly according to official plans. On some battlefields, snipers discovered that these specialized rounds produced effects that ordinary ammunition could not. When an explosive or incendiary bullet struck metal equipment, ammunition boxes, or certain surfaces, the result could be startling. Sparks, fragments, and sudden bursts of energy created a dramatic visual effect. Sometimes the impact triggered secondary explosions if nearby ammunition or fuel was present. Rumors began to spread among enemy soldiers. Stories circulated about mysterious rifle shots that did far more damage than expected. Some claimed that American snipers were using strange, exploding bullets. Others described impacts that shattered equipment or caused violent bursts of flame. In the confusion of battle, it was often impossible to know exactly what had happened or what kind of ammunition had been used. Among German troops, these unusual incidents began to take on an almost supernatural reputation. The fear of unseen snipers was already deeply ingrained in frontline soldiers, especially after brutal urban and forest fighting where visibility was limited and danger could come from any direction. When reports of unusual impacts and destructive rifle fire appeared, many soldiers began referring to these mysterious shots with a dark nickname. They called them devil shots. Whether the term came from fear, exaggeration, or simple battlefield myth is still debated by historians. What is certain is that psychological warfare has always been one of the sniper's greatest weapons. A sniper does more than eliminate targets. He creates uncertainty. Every movement becomes risky. Every exposed position could attract a deadly shot. And when soldiers believe that the enemy possesses strange or devastating ammunition, the psychological pressure grows even stronger. American snipers themselves rarely saw their work in such dramatic terms. For them, the mission remained focused and practical. Observe the battlefield, identify important targets, and fire only when success was certain. Specialized ammunition was simply another tool in the arsenal, useful under particular circumstances, but never a replacement for patience and precision. Yet the legends persisted. On quiet nights along the front lines, soldiers sometimes whispered about the invisible marksman who seemed able to destroy equipment with a single shot. Some believed these snipers carried experimental ammunition designed specifically for them. Others thought the stories were exaggerated, created by frightened troops trying to explain the chaos of combat. What made these stories powerful was the environment in which they were born. The battlefields of World War II were places of constant tension, where information traveled through rumor as much as through official reports. A single unusual event could quickly transform into a tale repeated by hundreds of soldiers across an entire front. And somewhere in that mixture of fact and legend, the idea of the devil shot took hold. It was a name that captured both the fear of the unknown and the respect soldiers often felt for skilled enemy snipers. Because in the end, whether the ammunition was explosive, incendiary, or entirely ordinary, the true danger was not the bullet itself. The real threat was the unseen marksman behind the scope, watching patiently, waiting for the exact moment when one carefully aimed shot could change the course of a battle. As the war intensified across Europe and the Pacific during World War II, the role of the sniper became increasingly important. While massive armies clashed across vast battlefields, commanders on both sides began to recognize that a single well-trained marksman could influence combat in ways that large units sometimes could not. Precision, stealth, and patience turned snipers into a unique force multiplier. For the United States Army, developing effective sniper teams meant combining accurate rifles, reliable optics, and specialized ammunition into a system capable of operating under the harshest conditions of war. At the center of this system stood one of the most respected rifles of the era, the M1903 Springfield rifle. Originally adopted years before the war, this bolt-action rifle quickly proved itself as one of the most accurate service weapons available. With careful manufacturing and precise engineering, it delivered exceptional consistency at long distances. When fitted with telescopic sights and issued to trained marksmen, the Springfield became a deadly sniper platform capable of engaging targets hundreds of meters away. American snipers valued the rifle for several reasons. Its bolt-action design provided strong locking strength and reliable feeding, even when mud, dust, or freezing temperatures threatened to jam lesser weapons. Just as important, the rifle's solid construction allowed it to maintain accuracy after repeated firing. In sniper warfare, where a single missed shot could reveal a hidden position, reliability and precision were absolutely critical. Optics also played a major role in turning a standard rifle into an effective sniper weapon. Early telescopic sights were far less advanced than modern scopes, but they still gave trained shooters a decisive advantage. With magnified vision, snipers could observe distant terrain in greater detail, identify hidden enemy positions, and place carefully aimed shots at ranges where ordinary infantry would struggle to see their target clearly. Beyond the weapon itself, sniper training emphasized patience above all else. A sniper might spend hours crawling slowly into position, carefully choosing a location that offered concealment and a clear field of fire. Once hidden, he would remain almost completely motionless, observing the battlefield through his scope. The goal was not simply to fire quickly, but to fire at the exact moment when the shot would have the greatest effect. Targets were rarely chosen at random. officers directing troops, machine gun crews controlling defensive positions, radio operators coordinating communication, and artillery observers guiding bombardments were considered especially valuable targets. Eliminating just one of these individuals could create confusion, disrupt coordination, and slow an entire enemy advance. While the Springfield remained the primary sniper rifle for many American marksmen, the war also introduced new possibilities. One notable example was the semi-automatic M1 Garand rifle. Unlike the bolt-action Springfield, the Garand allowed rapid follow-up shots without manually cycling the action after every round. Although its accuracy sometimes varied depending on the specific configuration and scope mounting system, the Garand still gave certain snipers an advantage when quick engagement was necessary. But rifles and optics were only part of the story. Ammunition itself could dramatically change what a sniper was capable of accomplishing. Standard rifle cartridges were designed to deliver consistent ballistic performance, but specialized rounds began appearing for particular tasks. Armor-piercing ammunition could penetrate thin metal surfaces, while incendiary rounds contained compounds that ignited upon impact, producing sparks or flames capable of damaging equipment or starting fires. These rounds were particularly useful when snipers were assigned anti-materiel missions. Instead of targeting only enemy soldiers, they could aim for vehicles, supply crates, communication devices, or ammunition stores. In certain situations, a carefully placed shot could disable a truck engine, destroy delicate instruments, or ignite flammable materials stored behind the front lines. Such actions required extraordinary precision. A sniper might need to strike a specific mechanical component no larger than a fist from hundreds of meters away. Wind, terrain, lighting conditions, and the curvature of the bullet's trajectory all had to be calculated. A slight misjudgment could send the bullet wide of the target, wasting a rare opportunity. Because of this complexity, sniper teams often worked in pairs. One soldier acted as the shooter, while the other served as a spotter. The spotter used binoculars or a scope to observe the battlefield, estimate distance, watch for enemy movement, and help guide the shooter's aim. This partnership allowed the team to gather information more effectively and adjust quickly if conditions changed. Communication between shooter and spotter was quiet and precise. Even a whisper could reveal their position if enemy soldiers were nearby. Hand signals, brief murmurs, or simple coded phrases allowed them to coordinate without drawing attention. In many cases, the spotter would also watch for the bullet's impact, helping the shooter correct for wind or elevation on the next shot if needed. Over time, these carefully coordinated teams became one of the most effective tools available to American infantry units. Their presence forced enemy soldiers to remain cautious, limiting movement and slowing operations. A sniper hidden somewhere across the battlefield could influence decisions made by officers who knew that a single exposed moment might attract deadly attention. Yet what truly made these snipers formidable was not just their equipment, it was the combination of discipline, training, and patience that allowed them to operate unseen. The rifles they carried were powerful tools, but the real weapon was the mind behind the trigger, calculating distance, reading the wind, and waiting for the precise second when the crosshairs settled on a critical target. And as specialized ammunition continued to appear on the battlefield, the capabilities of these marksmen expanded even further. With the right rifle, the right round, and the right opportunity, a single sniper could achieve results that once required entire squads of soldiers. By the middle years of World War II, sniper warfare had evolved into something far more complex than simply placing skilled marksmen on the battlefield. Across Europe, particularly after the massive landings of Allied forces during the Battle of Normandy, the nature of combat changed dramatically. Dense hedgerows, shattered villages, ruined factories, and narrow streets created an environment where visibility was limited and danger could appear from almost anywhere. In these chaotic conditions, snipers became one of the most dangerous and unpredictable threats a soldier could face. American infantry units advancing through France quickly learned that traditional large-scale firepower did not always solve every tactical problem. Enemy machine gun nests hidden inside buildings or behind thick vegetation could halt entire platoons. A single well-positioned machine gun could control an open road, a crossroads, or the entrance to a village. Attempting to assault these positions directly often resulted in heavy casualties. This is where the sniper's role became critical. Armed with rifles such as the M1903 Springfield rifle or occasionally the M1 Garand rifle, American snipers were tasked with eliminating key defensive positions that were difficult to reach with ordinary infantry fire. Instead of launching a direct attack, commanders sometimes relied on a sniper team to quietly approach the area, observe the enemy's pattern of movement, and wait for the perfect moment to strike. A sniper might spend hours watching a single machine gun nest through the scope of his rifle. He would study when the gunner exposed himself, when ammunition was reloaded, and how the surrounding soldiers moved around the position. Patience was the sniper's greatest advantage. Unlike infantry, who had to advance quickly under fire, the sniper could wait for exactly the right second. Sometimes the mission involved more than just targeting soldiers. Supply trucks moving along narrow roads, communication equipment positioned on rooftops, or ammunition crates stacked near defensive positions all became potential targets. When specialized ammunition was used, the effect could be far more dramatic than an ordinary rifle shot. Imagine a quiet battlefield at dawn. The air is cold and a light fog hangs over the fields. A sniper team lies hidden inside tall grass several hundred meters away from an enemy supply position. Through the scope, the shooter sees soldiers unloading wooden crates from a truck. The spotter quietly estimates the distance and watches the wind moving through nearby trees. A single shot breaks the silence. If the round strikes the right object, perhaps a metal component, an ammunition box, or a fuel container, the impact can produce sparks, fragments, or even a sudden burst of flame. To the soldiers witnessing it from a distance, the effect may appear almost unnatural. A simple rifle shot suddenly causes equipment to explode or ignite. Moments like these were rare, but they were powerful. In the confusion of battle, even a small explosion could trigger panic. Soldiers might believe they were under attack from heavier weapons or hidden artillery. Others would search desperately for the invisible marksman responsible for the shot. Reports of these incidents began circulating among German units, particularly within formations of the Wehrmacht. Some soldiers described hearing a normal rifle shot followed by an unusually violent impact. Others claimed they had seen equipment suddenly burst apart after being struck by a bullet. As these stories spread from one frontline position to another, they slowly transformed into something larger than the original events. The nickname "devil shots" began appearing in conversations among troops who feared the unseen American snipers capable of producing these strange effects. Whether the name was meant as a serious description or simply dark battlefield humor remains uncertain, but the psychological impact was real. Soldiers already worried about hidden snipers now believed that those snipers might possess mysterious ammunition capable of causing unexpected destruction. Fear spreads quickly in wartime environments where information is limited and danger is constant. A single unusual incident could easily become a rumor repeated across entire units. By the time the story reached another frontline position, the details might have changed dramatically. A spark might become an explosion, and an explosion might be proof of some secret weapon. But for the American snipers themselves, the mission rarely felt mysterious or legendary. Most of the time, their work involved long periods of waiting, careful observation, and the constant struggle to remain hidden. Crawling through mud, lying motionless for hours, and avoiding enemy patrols required extreme discipline.
Their successes were often quiet and unnoticed outside their immediate unit. When a sniper eliminated a machine gun operator or damaged critical equipment, the result might simply be that friendly infantry could finally advance without taking heavy fire. The larger story behind that single shot might never be fully known. Yet on battlefields filled with uncertainty and fear, the presence of an unseen sniper always carried enormous psychological weight. Every open window, every distant tree line, and every broken wall could hide a marksman watching patiently through a scope. And when a shot echoed across the battlefield, followed by an unexpected burst of destruction, the legends only grew stronger. Somewhere out there, soldiers believed, an American sniper was firing the mysterious rounds they had come to call the devil shots.
War is fought not only with bullets and artillery, but also inside the human mind. By the later years of World War II, soldiers on every front had learned that fear, uncertainty, and exhaustion could be just as dangerous as enemy fire. Among the many threats that haunted the battlefield, few created as much psychological pressure as the presence of an unseen sniper. For soldiers serving in units of the Wehrmacht, the fear of snipers was constant. Unlike artillery or machine guns, which revealed their position through noise and movement, a sniper operated in near total silence. A single shot might echo across a field or a ruined street, but by the time anyone reacted, the shooter was already hidden again. No clear target, no visible enemy, just the sudden knowledge that someone out there was watching and waiting. This uncertainty forced soldiers to change how they moved, how they communicated, and even how they thought about the terrain around them. A road that looked safe one moment could suddenly become deadly if a sniper was observing it from a distant tree line. A window in a damaged building might hide a rifle scope. Even a broken wall or a pile of rubble could conceal a marksman lying perfectly still. American sniper teams from the United States Army were trained to take advantage of exactly this kind of psychological pressure. Their goal was not simply to eliminate enemy soldiers, but to disrupt the enemy's confidence and slow their ability to operate effectively. Every carefully placed shot reminded opposing troops that they were being watched. The battlefield environment itself helped amplify this fear. In forests, ruined cities, and hedgerow-covered farmland, visibility was limited. Soldiers often could not see more than a few dozen meters ahead. Beyond that distance, the landscape blurred into shadows and shapes that could easily hide a sniper. When rumors began spreading about unusual ammunition, bullets that produced sparks, flames, or small explosions when striking certain objects, the psychological tension increased even further. Whether those incidents involved specialized rounds or simply dramatic impacts on equipment, the stories quickly gained power among frontline soldiers. Some troops believed American snipers possessed experimental ammunition designed to cause explosive effects on impact. Others imagined that these mysterious rounds were specifically intended to terrorize anyone unlucky enough to cross the sniper's sights. The nickname devil shots became a way to describe something that felt almost supernatural. In reality, much of this fear was driven by the natural stress of combat. Soldiers under constant threat often search for explanations for sudden or unusual events. A single spark from an impact against metal might look like a small explosion in the chaos of battle. A bullet striking an ammunition crate could produce a far more dramatic result than anyone expected. But once a story begins spreading through an army, it rarely remains simple. One soldier tells another about a strange incident. That soldier shares the story with his squad. Soon the details change, grow, and become more dramatic. By the time the tale reaches another company, the event may sound like proof of a powerful new weapon. Snipers themselves understood the psychological value of this uncertainty. Their effectiveness depended heavily on remaining invisible.
If the enemy became afraid to move freely, the sniper had already succeeded in shaping the battlefield without firing another shot. The partnership between shooter and spotter also played a role in this psychological warfare. While the shooter focused on the target, the spotter watched the surrounding terrain, looking for enemy movement or signs that soldiers were searching for the sniper's position. If the enemy began investigating too closely, the team could quietly relocate and disappear again. Mobility was critical. After firing, many sniper teams moved to a new location before the enemy could organize a search. Even a small shift in position, just a few dozen meters, could make it almost impossible for enemy soldiers to find them. From the perspective of those being targeted, it could seem as if the sniper had vanished into thin air. Over time, the presence of snipers forced entire units to slow their operations. Soldiers avoided exposing themselves in open areas. Officers hesitated before standing up to observe the battlefield. Communication became more cautious. Even routine tasks like carrying supplies or moving between buildings required careful planning. This constant pressure gradually wore down morale. It was not always the number of casualties that mattered most, but the feeling that danger could appear at any moment without warning. Every quiet moment could be broken by a sudden shot from somewhere beyond sight. In this way, the legend of the so-called devil shots became part of a larger psychological battlefield. Whether the ammunition involved was truly unusual or simply misunderstood, the stories themselves had power. Fear magnified every rumor, and rumor transformed ordinary events into something far more mysterious. For the snipers of the United States Army, however, the mission remained grounded in discipline and patience. Their training emphasized observation, timing, and precision. The rifle, the ammunition, and the camouflage were only tools. The real weapon was the sniper's ability to remain unseen while shaping the thoughts of the enemy. Because in war, controlling the enemy's mind can sometimes be just as important as controlling the battlefield itself.
As the guns of World War II finally began to fall silent in 1945, soldiers on all sides carried home thousands of stories from the battlefield. Some were carefully documented in military reports and official histories. Others survived only through memories, whispered conversations between veterans, and the strange legends that war often leaves behind. Among those stories were the mysterious accounts of unusual sniper rounds that German soldiers had once called devil shots. In reality, the truth behind these stories was far more complex than the rumors that spread during the war. Military historians studying the conflict later confirmed that various types of specialized ammunition did exist during the war. Incendiary rounds, armor-piercing bullets, and other experimental cartridges had been developed by several nations for very specific purposes. Their main role was usually anti-material work, damaging equipment, igniting fuel, or disabling vehicles rather than targeting individual soldiers. Within the United States Army, such ammunition was sometimes issued to marksmen or specialized units when the mission required it. A well-trained sniper, equipped with a rifle like the M1903 Springfield rifle, could potentially strike sensitive equipment from long distances with remarkable precision. In certain situations, that meant hitting ammunition crates, radio equipment, engines, or other vulnerable targets that were difficult to reach using ordinary infantry weapons. However, the use of explosive or incendiary effects in small arms ammunition was carefully regulated by international military agreements, including the principles that emerged from the Hague Conventions. These rules were intended to limit certain types of ammunition that could cause unnecessary suffering when used directly against soldiers. As a result, most specialized rounds were designed primarily for equipment or vehicles rather than human targets. Yet, the battlefield rarely followed perfectly clear rules. Under the chaotic conditions of war, ammunition intended for one purpose might be used in unexpected ways. A shot fired at equipment could trigger secondary explosions if ammunition or fuel happened to be stored close by. When such incidents occurred, the effects might appear far more dramatic than anyone anticipated. For soldiers witnessing these moments without understanding the technical details, the explanation often became something mysterious or even frightening. Stories spread quickly among troops who were already under enormous stress. A single unusual shot might become proof that the enemy possessed a terrifying new weapon. The nickname "devil shots" captured that mixture of fear and imagination. It reflected how easily battlefield experiences could turn into legend when information was scarce and survival depended on reacting to every possible threat. In many ways, the legend revealed more about the psychological atmosphere of war than about the ammunition itself. After the war, historians and military researchers began examining these stories more carefully. By comparing battlefield reports, weapon records, and ammunition documentation, they were able to piece together a more balanced picture. Yes, specialized rounds had existed. Yes, snipers sometimes used ammunition capable of producing unusual effects when striking certain materials. But the terrifying reputation of these so-called devil shots was often amplified by rumor and the natural fear that snipers created among enemy soldiers. The legacy of wartime snipers continued long after the conflict ended. Lessons learned during the war influenced how modern sniper doctrine developed in later decades. Precision shooting, careful observation, and teamwork between shooter and spotter became essential elements in military sniper programs around the world. Weapons technology continued to evolve. Modern sniper rifles and optics are far more advanced than those carried by soldiers in the 1940s. Yet many of the fundamental principles remain the same: patience, concealment, and the ability to observe the battlefield without being seen. Today, historians still study the stories of wartime snipers to better understand how small groups of soldiers could influence events on a much larger scale. The idea that a single hidden marksman could halt an advance, disrupt communication, or destroy critical equipment demonstrates how powerful precision can be in warfare. The legend of the devil shots remains one of many fascinating examples of how wartime experiences transform into enduring stories. Somewhere on the battlefields of Europe, a rifle fired across a quiet field, striking an unexpected target and producing a dramatic result. Soldiers who witnessed the moment carried the memory with them, sharing it with others until it became part of a larger myth. But behind every legend was a real soldier lying quietly behind a rifle, watching through a scope, calculating distance and wind, waiting for the exact moment to fire. And in that moment, when the trigger was pulled and the shot echoed across the battlefield, the line between history and legend was created.